Well, hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are live here on the Long Live the Chaz, the greatest podcast on dirt. That's the name of the Long Live the Chaz's little talk shows, the greatest podcast on dirt. And you know, sometimes we gotta ride on these damn asphalt roads to get to the dirt track. And we may be talking a little bit about some asphalt roads today, and not saying it's my own asphalt, but I'll tell you what isn't my own asphalt, and that is this. Look at this upgrade. Think about what you've been looking at with the Chaz here on his lives, and then think of this. Oh my God, look at that. See, that is what actual beautiful face looks like. Look at this face right here. Now you can look. This is what y'all been seeing. Y'all been thinking this whole time that I'm some zombie looking, crackerhead over here. And at the whole time, I'm this beautiful, am I supposed to be a gladiator from the Greek histories, a Viking or something? Did I lose a few inches short, in the birth process? What happened to the height thing? I mean, I hate being 5'10 to 5'11. Oh, it's horrible. But this is what I actually look like, ladies and gentlemen. The color, the skin color, look at this. It looks like zombie. Am I infected? No, look at the vibrant skin. I do have a little red dot here. I got slapped in the face by somebody last night. So I think that's a little mark that's left. But, actually, it's just a little bit. Skin cancer, I'm not sure. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, new camera here we're going to have on the show. We're going to switch back and forth. The old camera still has its purposes. Look, we got two camera angles. I am going to love touching this button. Obviously, I do all this myself. So, yes, I have to switch camera angles. Anyway, we are here for a talk show with a very interesting person, very interesting subject here. Obviously, super late model. Sorry about that. It is late at night, ladies and gentlemen. I do have a vape pen with me, so if you see smoke and you're mad, kiss my ass. But anyways, Josh Richeson. It's hard to say this. We are side by side with Josh Richeson. He is on the other line. I believe you are on the line. Is that how you say it, Richardson?
Richardson, yes, you are correct.
Okay, Richardson. And you are...
It's kind of a tongue twister.
I mean, I would like to say that's what she said, but I am in a committed relationship. Regardless, you have a history. I met you for the first time at Cherokee like 3 years ago. And you were racing.
Just when we were starting this, yep.
Yeah, and you were racing. And at the time, it was called a Hess chassis. And I think you were trying to explain to me how the Hess chassis has this huge history in asphalt pavement racing, not only in the short track, but big-time scenes as well. And y'all were trying to get into doing some dirt stuff. And people may not know your background completely, but who the hell are you? Who are you? I gave a little opening to what we're going to be talking about tonight. But... who are you? What's your name, sir? I think I got it right. Where are you from? What are we doing here?
I am Josh Richeson. I grew up in Harrisburg, North Carolina, and moved to Mooresville when I was a teenager. I grew up in a racing family. Brett, Jeff, and Todd Borden were my uncles. And
really?
My father.
Wait, hold on. Slow the Bodines names down. What? How many? What?
So Brett, Jeff, and Todd Borden grew up, as the nephew to the Borden brothers. Got to grow up at the race shop. School bus dropped me off at my Uncle Brett's shop. Started racing go-karts when I was 4 years old. Raced go-karts until we was 14. Started racing pavement, late model stock cars.
I have a feeling. Hold on. I have a feeling like this is a little more elaborate than that simple. Like, you obviously have. You said Brett Bodine in there too. Todd. I mean, he was a great racer. How did you even? I would say, how did you get introduced to the racing world? But it seems like you didn't know anything different. And I'm guessing in this transition where you're racing, you're seeing the success of these relatives you have. That had to be crazy as a kid. Your childhood didn't sound boring, is what I'm saying.
No, it was definitely an interesting childhood. I mean, people think that, you come from a NASCAR family that, it was a wealthy family or whatnot. when I was a child or growing up, when I was born, there was 3 of us, me, my cousin, my mom, my aunt, Brett, and Todd all lived in a single wide trailer across the street from Charlotte Motor Speedway in the trailer park. It was definitely not, Royals,
wasn't
Jeff,
a monarchy
obviously.
like it is today, I mean.
No. I didn't grow up in motorhomes and all
What year was this?
Or
time
so I was
frame?
born in 81, so, early 80s. My Uncle Jeff was, one of Rick Hendrick's first ever drivers, won Rick Hendrick's first ever race. My Uncle Brett, he drove for Rick Hendrick originally because Jeff couldn't make a Busch Series start, and that's how he got his very first ride. So both Brett and Jeff started pretty much with Rick Hendrick. And then later along, Todd started pretty much as a fabricator. And Todd's where my fabrication skills kind of evolved. He was the one always during Christmases and holidays buying me fab equipment and tools and, painting my helmets and go-karts and stuff. So he was the one that really kind of helped guide my interest as far as building race cars along with driving them.
And how did that relationship kind of develop and go?
So when I was just a little kid, Todd and his wife at the time lived basically in my backyard. So Todd would bring me to school and drop me off, and I'd hang out, wherever he was working on whatever race team or whatever. So I kind of got to pal around as a kid with struggling race car drivers. At that time, there was no giant corporate money or anything like you see today. So, my Uncle Todd and Brett, they were working in race shops and stuff as I was, a little guy growing up.
Well, and I was about to say, the area you're talking about right there, you personally have got to see these race cars, NASCAR Cup cars, that is, go from almost like super late model racing is today, where you could go and build a car, buy a chassis from a good chassis maker with a regular working guy. If he builds a small time business enough and has a couple million to spare on something, you could go buy a super late model right now, and if you could drive and have the right crew, contend. Saw NASCAR in that era, and
that's what keeps me going, and that's where we're trying really hard to concentrate our interest and our knowledge towards that direction.
And what I was going to say is you saw it go from that era to where it is today. So you saw all this as a kid, and then in the developmental actually, working on these race cars as well.
Absolutely. I saw it as all aspects. I saw as a kid, the driver personalities that you have to maintain, and the fan interactions and the fan bases that you have to build, and those, personal appearances and dealing with the public and the fans, and, those, and then all the way up into, the building of the race cars and the evolution of the race cars, and, driving for car owners and crew chiefs, and, it was a darn good way to grow up with wanting to be a racer.
Well, and I'm just more so blown away at what you saw, because technically, and you would know this more than I would. When did a chassis in that 80s era kind of be, left behind? How quick would chassis technology in the stock car world change in those eras that we're talking about?
Honestly,
were things becoming old in a year? I mean, how long was stuff good?
The basic technology of the NASCAR stock car chassis was fairly similar all the way up until the Car Tomorrow design.
Really?
They were, I mean, obviously as machine technology and stuff like that, more intricate, cool machined parts and stuff evolved, but it was still the basis off of a, standard clip Chevelle from whatever, 67 or whatever the year model that they based that off of. They just turned them into tube chassis, and you see the evolution of them, as you start, traveling the front ends differently, or, changing the bodies for aerodynamic, as that information became more readily available to people and stuff. But the basic fundamentals of the stock car chassis were fairly similar. They were truck arm based with big coil spring front end suspension and upper and lower control arm spindle style steering box cars until, this newest car where they put a rack and pinion in them. So, the race car was evolved in a lot of different ways just to make them lighter and stronger and safer. But for the most part, they were still fairly simple.
So, in a weird way, the same chassis that was, in Days of Thunder could have been at, Daytona in 2001.
Yes. You would have had to change some rules, bars and stuff as the rules evolve for safety. But for the most part, to the untrained eye, if you walked up to a chassis that was in, for say, Days of Thunder in a 2000, NASCAR Cup car chassis, you wouldn't hardly notice much difference at all.
Wow, that just blows my mind, and a lot of people, would say that's when NASCAR kind of died, was the COT car.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where, people like myself and others' interests kind of evolve towards dirt racing. When you take creative minds and you put them inside a box like they have done, it takes a lot of the interest away. And most the good racers that I know and respect liked to race because they could think of something better than the guy next to them,
right?
And put it into play. And if it worked, you're proud of yourself. And if it didn't, you just kept on working until you found something that worked. Well, nowadays you don't have that option anymore.
Well, and the COT, I guess, would have been the first time where everything that had been okay to use for 20-ish years or 10-ish years was obsolete, and throw all it's scrap metal at the end of the day.
Well, the COT car was still very similar to the previous generation car. It was still a truck arm, 9-inch forward rear end housing, steering box style front end. So
it just changed for safety more so the bars on tops of the cars and kind of how the driver was in the car changed.
Absolutely.
And so those older chassis were obsolete because they were illegal. They weren't safe enough anymore.
Right. The main halos and stuff were a lot lower and smaller driver compartments and stuff. So the major change for the COT car was the size of it.
Right. And then I guess now that we've went from the COT, which spurred this last kind of generational look of a car, I guess, now you have the next gen, which I'm assuming has completely destroyed the engineers of the sport.
Yeah, in my opinion, it's completely destroyed the sport, period. It's taken people that's, lived their entire work life in the sport and taken jobs and deleted jobs as fabricators, and, and there's so many people that I've known growing up in the business that have moved back to, their hometowns from after, 15, 20 years working in the sport, just because, the racing isn't what it used to be. You don't have, your creative mind is trapped. You're stuck in such a box with the car. The travel schedules and stuff are, out of control anymore, and it's just a different world. So that's where we decided to go dirt racing.
Well, and I guess what was your career path? I'm sorry I stopped you at the 14-year-old thing. But I just think that your childhood had to be pretty cool, even though, like you said, it wasn't Hollywood, as most people think it is.
Oh,
nowadays.
no. growing up as a kid, I was in the back of vans. We didn't have motorhomes and stuff when I was a kid. There was no luxury playgrounds in the infields and stuff like the kids today have it. No YouTube channels and all that stuff. Like,
right.
You know, these kids growing up racing, you know, I had a group of friends that I grew up with, you know, a lot of kids in the sport, you know, Justin LeBonnie, you know, obviously Longhorn Chassis, you know, creator, Justin Musgrave, John Wood, Brian Vickers, Shane Meal. There was a group of us that grew up as children in the sport that grew up racing together. And we kind of all evolved our careers at the same times. You know, we were all at the same ages, all fairly gifted as far as the ability to go racing. You know, you grow up in a sport or in a family of a sport, you have an edge as far as just what I like to call dinner table knowledge. You know, if your family's sitting there talking about front suspension design that they used at Atlanta, you know, you just have a little bit of a upper hand over a kid that's sitting there at a dinner table and the dad's talking about the football game, you know. So we had a great growing up, you know, getting to race, like I said, you know, go-kart racing up until I was 14. We got into the pavement late model stock cars for a couple of years. You know, at that time, you know, the thought was you race a car that's most similar to what you want to evolve into. And, you know, growing up in a NASCAR racing family, you know, NASCAR late model stock car was the most similar car to evolve into a ARCA car and then a NASCAR Busch Series car or whatever. So that's where we went.
And what region, what area of the country is this?
Southeastern, you know, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Tennessee, Georgia.
And where were you racing out of? Where were you actually? I mean, I guess right there at the track you were saying, or is that? I'm assuming that changed by then.
So I grew up right down the street from Charlotte Motor Speedway,
yes.
And in my freshman year of high school, we moved to Mooresville. So kind of a funny story. So the year that Davey Allison got killed in the helicopter was the year that we moved from Harrisburg to Mooresville. So the building that my Uncle Brett had bought to start his race team was originally, there was a parts company in town called BSR Products, Butch Stevens Racing, and that's the building that we moved into. So Davey Allison had to buy a helicopter from this guy, and we bought the building from a lawsuit from Butch Stevens was involved in. And obviously we know the story of how Davey got killed in the helicopter, and we ended up with the race shop. And that's kind of how.
Wow.
You know, it's crazy looking back and seeing, you know, the way everything evolved and the storylines and the paths and the friendships that, you know, your family had.
Well, what happened there? Let's talk about your little racing career. So the thing with Davey Allison happens, and then what's the steps? Lead it up. Tell it out.
So
you were doing go-karts until this point, or had you done the go-karts yet?
Yeah, so I started racing go-karts when I was 4. I started driving for a company out of South Carolina when I was around 8 or 9 called Shadow Karts, and drove for them up until I was 14 or 15. That's when we got into the pavement late model stock car stuff.
Okay.
Did that until 3 years. The very first year they made me do it all by myself. They gave me, I was privileged enough to have a race car and a truck and trailer to go racing, but if I wanted to do it, I had to be out there working on it and fixing it and figuring out how to make it go around in the
Now, hold on. Do you mean, you said a truck and trailer to go racing? How old are you?
I had 16 is when I got into my very first race car.
So you were legal to drive? Sorry, we're getting a late arrival. We need a cup, but I do have organic vodka and, yes, everything being delivered to the table. We're having some mules here today. We just need a cup and some ice. Freaking waitresses around here, you know. They're horrible. No, I'm just playing. Oh, she threw something. No. So I was just curious, you know, you're 16. How is it legal for you to be even driving, you know, so.
Yeah, so North Carolina, you get your license you get your permit at 15, license at 16. I had obviously been up and down the road my whole life with a truck and trailer, so I knew how to drive trailer anyway by the time I got my license. So, off we went, and
But you had to
I was
earn
there.
it, you were saying. You had to be in the shops actually putting in the work.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I was fortunate enough that if I wanted a race car, that we didn't go buy a brand new race car. We went and got a race car that was used, and took it apart and cleaned all the parts and repainted everything and refurbished what we had and made new what we had to make new, and we went racing that way. And after I showed that I was committed to doing the work and putting in the effort to learn how to make my race car better, they hired a guy to be my crew chief the second year with my late model stock car. And that's when the results really started to shine. We hired a guy from Portland, Oregon. He is actually still in the sport today. If you watch the Daytona and Talladega races, you remember the Beard oil car with
who was it? Is it
yeah.
50 car or
yeah, it's who's the guy that owns all the casinos out in Vegas?
oh, the dude
Brendan
62. Oh
yeah, Brendan Gaughan and them. So Darren Shaw is his name. That is the crew chief on that Cup car today. Well, that's who we hired to be my late model stock car crew chief. So we moved him out from Portland, Oregon. He was the Great West regional champion the year before that we
what year was
hired him
this?
to move out. This had to be 2000, 99.
Oh, okay, so this is almost my McKenzie time too. And Greg Biffle actually was from out there. I'm sorry.
So Greg and Darren were racetrack rivals when I started.
So this is the guy when Greg Biffle talked about his past. He's like this one guy. This was him.
So Darren was the three-time Great West regional champion. So when I get the opportunity to work with a guy like that, one-on-one, up and down the road, that's when my racing career really started to take direction.
Okay.
He took me in and really, I was a kid, and I was I don't want to say cocky, but I was a cocky little kid. I got to race, and I'd get to race pretty much for a living since I was a kid. I'd been getting paid to race since I was 10. So, when I'm 16, 17, I needed somebody to kind of put the reins on me, and that's where Darren kind of came in and, polished me up and, taught me, keeping my toes, straight throughout the race and all the, things to win races. And that's about the time. During all of this time is when my Uncle Brett Bodine buys Junior Johnson's Motors race team. Junior Johnson and Associates, they called it.
That was when he retired, got out of owning.
Junior, yes. Junior, this was the very first year that Lowe's Home Improvement was sponsoring in NASCAR. So they transferred that sponsorship over to my Uncle Brett's, and I had already been racing the late model stock car at this point. So financially, it seems smartest to try to go do some ARCA races, just because of the timing
ARCA
and
was
my
still
age.
pretty good back then.
Yes, this was back when
Frank Kimmel.
Oh yeah, Frank Kimmel. There's
Who's your
nine-time
tires?
champion. Who's your tires? Absolutely. And I went and ran Charlotte Motor Speedway from Hickory Motor Speedway in my late model stock car, so it was a giant jump. And we run fourth my very first time at Charlotte in the ARCA race, and then we went to Pocono for my second race, and I damn near won it. Rain came with 5 to go, and I was on the inside of the leader when the caution came out. So we really started to get some attention at that point. And
obviously you had connections just through relations, people who at least knew to watch you sometimes,
Absolutely. I was very fortunate, to grow up in a family like I did. There was definitely connections.
You may not have had money, for having that, but you had, connections.
Right. There wasn't the checkbook to go buy a Hendrick motor or anything, but we had relationships through various motor builders and crew chiefs and, various people in the sport that made it to where we could put a car on the racetrack fairly affordably. We weren't, buying professional pit crews. I was begging buddies to get their friends to come and change tires and
but those were probably really good buddies,
Oh, for sure. Those are the relationships that are, still to this day allowing me to do what I do.
Right.
One of my best friends, Greg Morgan, he's worked on a race car that I've driven since I was 15 years old. There's, relationships and struggles and, I remember racing my first truck race at Darlington. We were so broke trying to get in the gate just to get the pit pass money. We were hijacking hot dogs off the neighbor's grill just because we didn't even have enough money to go to the backstretch grill to buy a hamburger. We were just doing whatever it took to be at the racetrack every weekend. And
how much was a pit pass? I'm curious.
I forget what it was, even $60 or whatever to get your, pit pass after you got your license and everything. But, it was just pure struggle to be at the racetrack.
So you went from that Pocono
weekend.
race, second though, to what? What happened? Keep going. Sorry I ruined the story. You had a good going.
All right, so we went to Pocono, ran second. And back then, Pocono on the schedule was June and then followed back in July. So the June race was the one where we ran second. And we come back in July, and
had you
Mike
raced
Hillman,
since then?
Nope. We came back and refurbished the car and everything. My Uncle Brett's crew chief, his name was Mike Hillman. His son, Mike Hillman Jr., still does Kyle Busch trucks and Haley Deegan and all them people and stuff. So Mike Hillman Sr., he really spearheaded the operation and went and got me a good engine and got me a transmission to where I could shift. At Pocono, this was, one of the few places we would shift. Yep. So we came back for the July race, both barrels ready to go. That already proved that I could get around the place and everything. And
you were thinking you could win, run away with it.
Well, I was a second faster than anyone in practice. And 17-year-old kid busted my tail on the warm-up lap going out to qualify.
My.
Yeah, no backup car, no nothing. Crashed hard enough and knocked the oil pump off the engine. Drove it back with no oil pump, blew the engine up, crashed my car.
My God.
So that was the end of the ARCA racing.
That was the end of something, jeez.
Well,
and there ain't no insurance policy, was there?
No, and the race car that I was using was a show car that was one that Brett had bought through the Junior Johnson acquiring. And we just kind of patched it together and cut and changed and made a race car out of it. So after I crashed and blew the ARCA engine up, and because the ARCA car is a 110-inch wheelbase car and a Busch car is a 105-inch wheelbase car.
Okay.
So after I crashed my ARCA car, we needed to do something else. So got enough interest. Wayne Jessel, my dad was a crew chief at Jessel Motorsports at this time. Wayne Jessel, Jessel valve train, valves and components. And so Wayne gave my dad a car that was laying out back that had a different front clip, center section, and a rear clip, 3 different manufacturers, and none of the drivers would drive it. And Wayne knew that I just crashed my ARCA car. So that was my first ever Busch race. So Wayne Jessel gave me a car to take to Rockingham.
Put together car.
Yeah, just a car that was laying out back. This was when my Uncle Todd was driving the Stanley Tools car. It was number 36. David Green was driving the car. And I want to think Tim Fita was in another car at this time out of the Jessel team. And it was a car that none of the three would drive. And I went to Rockingham and I qualified 7th with it for my first time. And we were running 12th, and the engine blew up with 25 to go.
Oh, my God.
And that's kind of how my NASCAR career went. You know, we had darn good runs, but never had a chance to show anything.
What do you mean?
For
It basically ended it right there? I mean, what?
No. I had 3 or 4 more years, but there was just never the finish or the day that came and changed the career path.
Just consistency on one end or the other wasn't there.
Something would always happen. It was a low dollar team. Something would break. We were running 6th at Atlanta. The transmission exploded, blew parts up through the roof because it was the transmission out of my late model stock car. We were just doing anything to go racing at that time.
Now, you know how much, the modern super late model operation is to race and how much it is to, get going down the road. Obviously, haulers have came a long way since the 80s and the 90s, but do you think it's about, in that day, was it about the same to run a super as it would be in today's time? Or was it
late model on dirt pavement?
No. Dirt. Or was it really just that much more expensive back then still? Or was it cheaper?
In my mind, dirt late model racing is the most expensive it has ever been.
But I mean,
with the shot
to run NASCAR Busch Series at that time.
At that time, that's all.
And we're talking
2000s,
early 2000s,
2002, 3. I had the Smucker sponsorship, Smucker's dessert toppings in 2003. So 2006 or 7 was my last NASCAR race. But don't forget, I grew up in a family that was NASCAR racing for the family business. So there was gears and drive shafts and hubs and brakes and
replacements,
components around. My family didn't dirt late model race like Hudson O'Neal and those kids. That's how they got into what they're doing. That's what their family raced. I got into what I was doing because that's what my family was racing. My cousins,
right?
Barry and stuff. Which is Jeff's sons. They were racing go-karts and trucks, and that's
I'm assuming though it still took a good amount of money to even get on the track back then.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying.
Oh no, I'm saying it could be a bad thing for you because super late model Hudson O'Neal, it's only a couple $1 million a year to run the best of the best equipment and everything. I'm assuming that's not the case in that day and age with the Busch Series and the things that you may want to obtain, being the asphalt kid. That's way more money to be able to be that guy.
Oh, for sure. And like Davenport said, he realized that he didn't have enough money to go be a professional pavement racer. And, that's kind of where, after 2 or 3 years of the family race team having the equipment around to make it cheaper and more affordable for me to go racing, when there's pit boxes and tools and generators and stuff, just from your family's business, it makes it more affordable to go do that,
But ballpark figure, about how much would it have been to run just your style operation week in and week out in that day, all year?
Back then I was doing each race for $50,000, and that was nothing compared to what I was racing against. The fully funded teams were spending $150,000, $200,000 a race, and this is back when you go to Richmond and there's 75, 80 Busch cars trying to make their field. It was a completely different deal because you still had the local short track racers that could show up and afford to build a race car and stuff.
Yeah.
Then.
Well, and that's what everybody's worried about right now with dirt. They don't want to NASCAR the sport, and they're worried, I think, about, something like that happening to where the little guy has no chance. Because that's the case right now in NASCAR. It don't matter if you are Patrick Mahomes. If you ain't got 20 million, you don't even think about having a career in NASCAR. And you got to have 20 million at about the age of 10 or 12.
Oh yeah,
I mean, that's reality, you know.
So my Uncle Brett was in charge of the approvals for the young drivers after he had went to work for NASCAR. So I got a lot of kids asking me what steps they thought I should recommend them take to NASCAR. And I've started to just simply answer, instead of going to the racetrack on a Saturday night, spend the week trying to find a sponsorship, because it doesn't matter how good you finished on Saturday night. If you can't pay for it, you're not going racing.
Well, and that's the sad part, you know. I bitch and complain about dirt racers not getting their respect. You know, Jonathan Davenport, pretty much no one knows who that is in the real world. You know, the regular world.
For sure.
No idea what a late model is, so you can't tell me they know what Jonathan Davenport is. You know, I'm just saying. But, you know, I complain about our dirt guys not getting respect. Now, we got a ring where you could bring the best drivers in the world into that ring, and I don't care if it's Lewis Hamilton. You ain't beating Jonathan Davenport in a super late model today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now. He's probably one of the best there ever is. And we got a lot of guys on that level. But my response would be is I bet you there's a lot of Jonathan Davenports on the short asphalt tracks out there in America, asphalt, short track supers, and even probably the limited and pro, because I hear supers just out of hand as far as affordability in today's world. But I bet you there's a lot of, you know, Dale Earnhardt seniors running weekly on these short tracks somewhere, but they just didn't have the $20 million lotto at 10 or 12 years old, and they're just stuck being Patrick Mahomes, you know.
And we've all heard Kenny Wallace say it time and time again about, you know, Dale Earnhardt saying there's thousands of great race car drivers, you know, and that's very true, you know. And the problem with pavement racing today is they're going late model stock car racing with 18 wheelers and stuff like that. You know, it's so priced. It's unbelievable. And now that Dale Jr. and, you know, Kevin Harvick and these other ones are starting to promote cars tours and stuff because their kids are, you know, going to start racing in them and stuff. You know, it's just even going to get even more expensive when you got guys.
Do you think that that's the reason that they're making a deal with the cars tour and Dale Jr. is, I'm going to start running late models, because they're trying to get eyes on these other series only for the intention of the kids getting exposure that they have a relation to that is coming up in these series?
They just need safe places to bring their kids. You know, it's a good proven ground for them, and if you're in control of the series and you're in control of the people that are around, and you know,
when you roll in the tech sheds, you roll right out. Is that what you're saying to me?
Yeah.
Are you serious? No, you're kidding, right? You're kidding, correct?
How
corrupt is the short track asphalt world? You know, what a lot of people don't know what you're saying about bringing the haulers and stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, these weekly short track racing facilities on asphalt, it ain't like going down here to Boone on a Saturday night or something. Or going to a local late model race in Illinois. When you go and unload your short track local team, there's freaking Joe Gibbs Racing Development parked in there with the hauler and an actual TRD funded organization.
Multiple like that.
Chevy and Ford and yeah.
Growing up in Mooresville, most of my friends that I grew up with have businesses taking kids racing. You know, that's turned into the industry in town, you know, and the higher up they go in the series, the more hounding after the fathers, the team managers, and those type of people become. So, you know, if they create their own series and everything for them to gather all the wealthy into, it's easier to control and corral and feed their system.
Well, and that is a very extreme microcosm. And you're talking about like just a rich clique getting together and starting their own series. That way they can control who runs good and who is where, and, you know, and kind of just play with their own little private league. and make themselves look better than everyone else, even though they've kept out the competition, technically. What I'm saying is that it sounds like you're about to be like, yeah, that's exactly what you're talking. But what I mean by that is a microcosm to what NASCAR is. It's a group of wealthy elite car owners mixed in with OEM manufacturers that control who runs in their league. If you don't get in with 4 or 5 of the owners, there's 4 or 5 people, organizations, yes, but there's still a head honcho at the top of that TP in each organization that makes calls. If you don't get in with one of those 5 owners that have the best cars up front, you ain't getting in. And the wealthy can look good and keep out all the Bobby Pierces and Davenports and Gravels and all these talented individuals, you know. So what you're talking about there is very similar to how racing actually works.
I mean, I've lived it. They have made the stock cars so easy to drive these days. They've taken all the horsepower off of them and added as much downforce as you could possibly put on a stock car, and underbelly pans and this and that. And they've got them to where anyone can drive it with enough time. You know, you go out and you crash 5 or 6 times, you're gonna get the hang of it. You know, and if you get enough money to keep sending a new car out there after you crash it, you're gonna get the hang of it. And that's why there's the guys like Kyle Busch that really shine, and the rest of them,
yeah,
you know, because
they siphon it's like Rocky 3, you know, when Mickey tells Rocky they were handpicked. You can't fight Clubber. These other guys you've been beating, they were just handpicked. You know, they just handpicked the competition. That is exactly what NASCAR is. They literally handpick. We've
all heard the Dale Jr. download with Bloomquist here lately. You know,
great example.
You know, if they tell Scott Bloomquist, you know, the normal guy don't have a chance. You know, no. And the poor kid that sees it on television, and you know, unless Daddy's got enough money to pay for it all the way, you know, And the sad part is you see these kids that Dad's got enough money to take them 2 or 3 ARCA races or something, and you know the kid gets the taste. You know, as bad as it is to say, it's no different than a drug addiction. You know, when you get the taste of going big time racing, and then you can't afford to do it, and it's taken away from you, and you know everything that you hoped and dreamed for starts to vanish, and it's right there in your grasp. You know, it's a very difficult.
Here's the deal. The shitty people are the ones who sell those 3 ARCA races to some dad who only has enough money for 3 ARCA races, and they know it, but they sell it anyway, and they know it's not going to get him exposure. They know it's not, no matter how good he does, he ain't going to go nowhere because they got the money, they control it. And the people who sell it know it, but they do it. But they do it on purpose because they want that money. They want that sales commission. This has become.
There's a snake in every business.
But that's how they do it. That's how they survive. Correct? They have to do that.
Absolutely. And you know, there's there's probably 10 or 15 cars in the nationwide series in the trucks. You know, that's solely their business, is to go after the dads that can afford 2 or 3, 5 races. And that's why you see all these names that you've never heard of in all these races consistently, you know, like, because they're just, you know, the race team can't survive without funding. And there's no more sponsorship funding, or I shouldn't say no more, but it's nothing like it was at its prime.
Sponsors are daddies and mommies now.
Right.
That's the difference. They're getting sponsored based on, you know, nepotism or monarchy. They're not getting sponsored based on merit. There's no hard-working, better than everyone else sponsor out there.
No. The joke in the industry is kind of, you know, not what the kid has done, but what the dad does. You know,
hold on, is that a joke or is that a serious claim?
Well, I mean, running joke amongst the inners in the sport, you know, you don't really ask anything about the kid anymore. It's more like, well, what does his dad do? What kind of business are they in? And that's how the conversation leads today.
Right, and they get them started, I hate to say it, with Keith Coons midgets. Not just Keith Coons anymore, Keith. I'm not hating you. It's your business.
There's lots of them.
But they taste them at that $300,000 level. Then they taste them with that K&N East for $750, and then the Arca for $1.25, and then the truck for $3, and the Xfinity for $10. And
oh, for sure. But I've got lots of friends that are in the business of taking kids racing, and a lot of the people that are in the business doing that, you can't 100% knock them for the way the sport has evolved.
Well, and that's why I'm not hating Keith too much. It is what it is. It's a business model.
Most of them are racers that didn't make it as professional racers that are still just trying to survive. So what do you do if you have what do you do if you've raced your whole life and you have a shop full of race cars and you can't afford to race it yourself? You rent it out,
Right.
Either you rent it out or you go to Walmart and you get a job. What do you do?
People in the racing industry in dirt who they want to race, they can't afford to race, but they have 2 race cars and they rent one car out, and that rental pays for all of his racing.
and a lot of my Busch Series starts, I was still doing start and park stuff before kids were paying to drive the lower funded cars. So
so the start and park was how they used to make money. That's changed into back end rentals.
Right. The cars that I could still go make $1,000, $1,500 a week to, because I had the ability to qualify it in the show and get, last place money. Those cars are being rented now, by the kid's dad that can afford 2 or 3 nights, versus the kid that can afford a full season. And, so that whole NASCAR race and route and everything has just changed. And the part that I love about the dirt racing is there's no white fire suits in it. You might have some wealthier kids, that jump right into super late models with the toter homes and all that stuff. But even that kid wants it more than the rich kid that's driving around in a golf cart at the pavement track, because he's got to get out and he's got to wash it and he's got to work on it. And it's the dirt racing thing is a lot more difficult. You really got to want it to be a dirt racer, especially if you want to be good at it.
Well, let's pivot there. So you were racing last year. You what was it again? Sorry, it's been a minute. We went on this little asking the affordability, and that's how we got into that. Can you hear me? May have a technical issue here. Possibly. Oh, may have a technical issue. We'll try it one more time, boy. Oh, that is a loud ringer. Very loud ringer.
Can you hear me now?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, loud and clear. We lost you.
How do you like me now? Isn't that a Toby Keith song?
I don't know.
Okay, anyway, we were talking about the, last year there with the costs and everything was happening with you with that race team, and that's why I asked you about the cost. But what happened with you from there on out?
So, kind of as the family's race team's demise, economy got tight, everything kind of got difficult, and that's when I really had to go to work. 2007 or 8, I had to go get a job at a race shop. All I've ever done is work on a race car, mostly my own race cars, but so the next 4 or 5 years, I kind of just had the difficult path of trying to figure out, life direction.
Racing ended in 2000 what?
So the NASCAR racing, I think my last NASCAR race was in 07. So at that time, I had to go get a job.
Until then was race car driver.
Yep, I had never known anything else. Never. And growing up, the families owned teams and stuff, so that was the general direction that you thought you were going. the economy, 9/11, all the craziness happens, I have to go get a job. At this time, I'm working at Fitz Bradshaw Racing, just as a fabricator. And probably the biggest turning point as far as becoming a man in my life, I was working 7 to 7 days a week, and just miserable. Like, at the time, I didn't realize how much I was learning about being a person and, everything. But, it was just misery, going from thinking you're a race car driver to now working on other people and rich kids at that, race cars. And
Rachel smacks you in the face.
Oh yeah, it was a tough few years for sure. And fortunately,
it's gotta
during all
suck
this,
to see somebody throwing the football on the team. You could throw the ball better, but you got to have a certain amount of money to even play on the team.
It was a challenging time in my life for sure. I definitely had to go to work and learn who I was and figure out, what paths I was going to take to live the happiest life that I could, because my dreams were crushed at that point.
Right.
So I'd get the opportunity. So my dad had been a crew chief my whole life. At this time, my dad is still at Ken Schrader Racing.
Oh, wow. The 52 car? Or?
Yep. So my dad was in charge of all the pavement stuff, all the ARCA cars, all the trucks, all that stuff.
Federated Auto Parts.
That's the ones. So Schrader needed somebody to test the truck at Talladega. So I get the call to go to Talladega. I test the truck.
Were you known as being a tester for teams too in this time after not racing anymore?
Yes, because I had already got, a good amount of experience at a lot of the racetracks. I had been on everywhere except for Fontana as far as racetracks. So I'd got I had been doing some testing and, stuff like that for various teams off and on here and there.
I wonder how crazy it is in today's world because this is something that happens where a team has a test driver to test stuff instead of getting the main driver. You kind of fill in, to give the team information back, see what kind of change. You're still a good driver. I was about to say it's got to suck in today's world, because I would assume that there's a lot of test drivers out there that are better than the actual drivers. Does that happen a lot? That's got to happen. That's got to happen.
I mean,
especially in today's world.
I've definitely known racers that, had to take the back seat. Just, I do sports car racing to earn a little extra income nowadays, and you see that a lot in that world. You see really talented race car drivers sitting back just because they can't afford to pay the bill.
Yeah, and those aren't they more expensive to race than?
It's ridiculous.
Yeah, like $800 cars or $800,000 cars.
It's more than I can comprehend. When they come and the insurance agent is the first guy at the car after a crash, that's out of my league.
Wow, they got insurance over there?
Oh yeah, for sure they have insurance.
They have insurance. Wow, I never thought about that. That does make sense.
Yep.
Just because they do use a lot of factory-based vehicles. But I want to get to some of that road racing stuff. If you want to fast forward how we got to you doing road racing stuff, we can, or you could just switch gears now. It's up to you. I'd like to hear what happened as you was testing for Ken Schrader Racing. I'd like to hear it continue here, but...
All right, so I come home from Talladega, and at this time, Schrader's running a few ARCA races, a few truck races, and the dirt car stuff. It's all in the same shop, and they needed a fabricator. So fortunately enough, I grew up in the race shop and had just been working a fabricator job. I gained employment at Schrader's. And that was an introduction to dirt racing. First off, I had never driven a dirt car until I went to Schrader's.
Have you been around them?
No, I loved dirt cars as a kid. Like the wedge cars and all that stuff, sideboard cars.
Did you go
always
to the
pass
track, or did you just see pictures?
pictures mostly because as a kid growing up
I
in a
thought you were about
NASCAR
to
family,
say ESPN. Surprised what you could pick up. That's what I thought you was about to say.
the coverage is excellent.
Yeah, that's what hey, man, they were on ESPN back then. They were.
No, so going way back, my dad's very first job as a crew chief was with Ken Bouchard.
Oh, I don't even know who that is.
Yep, so I want to say he was the 1988 Rookie of the Year in NASCAR, but that was the first time I ever saw a dirt car. Whoever worked at the shop had a dirt car that sat in the shop, and me as a little kid, I'd go sit in that thing. So I always loved dirt cars as a kid, just never was around them.
And so when Ken Schrader racing, at how old were you?
24, 25-ish probably
24,
by now.
25. So all you people out there who hate NASCAR people, do not buy this guy's race car, because he didn't even know what a dirt car was until he had been in bed with the demon known as a woman before he had watched a dirt race.
Well, it wasn't as demon of a sport then. Growing up, when I grew up in sports, when I grew up in NASCAR, it's a lot like what dirt late model is now. There's the farmers and the guys that can afford to go racing out doing the national tours, and you're just now starting to get the major sponsors starting to poke their heads in and stuff. That's when I grew up in NASCAR.
Do you think in 20, 30 years we could be NASCAR today? Like as far as corporatized, and the regular man can't afford it?
There's definitely going to be a giant surge.
Okay, you could still get popular and stay like in affordable range. I mean, you look at Supercross and some of these other sports; they cost about the same to race. They're just well more known. We're still kind of in the dark, but
I feel that it's getting ready to have a giant surge just because of the amount of NASCAR drivers today that have interest in dirt racing. It's taking some of the focus and turning it towards the dirt racing.
But I think that's because we're more popular than them in younger demographics. If you look at the demographics in NASCAR, it is horrible. F1 has more viewers in the age range of 18 to 45 than NASCAR. NASCAR is basically 45 plus.
Anyone that doesn't know of the inners of the sport sees NASCAR on TV. So if they see that connection and they hear some guy talking about a dirt car and they flip to that, it's going to get the attention, because in my mind, the corporate Americas are starting to see that, there's bang for the buck. You don't have to spend the $25 million to be a NASCAR sponsor, but, with the way today's social media and short clips and, the stuff that we do today versus, commercials and everything back in the day, you just get so much more bang for the buck. They're going to start heading that way, in my opinion.
Right. I just think of like Supercross and stuff, they don't make much. We think they do. They don't make much in the purse department, but they make a ton of money in the sponsorship and endorsement areas. And obviously, Supercross is super well known. They still have I would rather be like a Supercross business model than NASCAR by far.
For sure.
Just because they're well known. They could walk into a business and say they want to sponsor the Supercross team or whatever, and they do it by the weekend. Like when they're in Dallas, they market to Dallas teams. When they're in Los Angeles, they market to Los Angeles businesses and stuff. And then they'll get $50,000 for, 2 nights of racing or a night of racing,
Oh, absolutely. And, there's definitely better business models.
I just see when we talk about, do you see it, super late model racing becoming NASCAR one day? I just think you can become popular. It seems like
I don't know that it'll ever become NASCAR, but it's going to have a popularity surge.
Right.
I see there's going to be some, a greater influx of corporate America coming in and seeing, benefits of, in my opinion, dirt racing hits all your senses. As a race fan, you go there, you get dirt thrown in your face. It's loud, it's obnoxious, it's exciting, they're short. all the things that today's fans are interested in. A 35-lap race is a lot easier to sell to a fan than 500
Even
laps.
100 is 100. They're
Right.
like, wow, that's it? Only 100? Oh my God!
Right,
regular people, they lose their mind. It ain't 4 or 5. It ain't 3. It's 1. How big's the track?
So hopefully, as growing up in the NASCAR side and seeing the evolution of the sport and the evolution of sponsorships and the evolution of marketing, and hopefully I can take some of those tools and knowledges and connections that I've been able to associate myself with over the years and that form of autosport, and try to transfer it into this form to help continue myself and now my business is,
Okay. Yeah, for sure. And then I want to get into that even more. We obviously talked a little bit about the racing and the testing track and all that, and the Ken Schrader situation. Go ahead and keep stepping forward in this, and we'll get to that point for sure.
All right, yeah. So a few years, working at Schrader's, driving, ARCA cars and trucks, and my first dirt race or dirt car experience is at East Bay. Me and Joey Wall, Schrader's nephew, were really good buddies, and Schrader was unable to get in the car for hot laps, and I had already been doing ARCA cars and trucks and stuff, and me and Schrader are the same size, and I fit in his suit and seats and helmets and everything. So Joey was like, hey, jump in that thing and go tell me what it's like. So that was my first time ever was in a Super at East Bay. And
but you had tested, you had hot lapped already, right?
No. I had never driven a dirt car. I had already done the ARCA cars and trucks and all that stuff, for Schrader.
What year was
but
this
never,
when you did this?
We have to be pushing 08, 9, 10, somewhere in that range by now.
Okay.
So we were, we did the East Bay thing, and obviously that got my attention, and I was pretty quick in hot laps. Schrader showed up qualifying and did the rest of the night and everything, and we come back home.
Let me ask you something real quick. It said you said it got your attention. I was gonna ask you when you was talking about going around Talladega and all this, like, what kind of sensations do you actually feel? Obviously, we all know it's like exiting the highway exit ramp. Everyone can go around Talladega wide open. I don't think there's a person. It don't matter if you're female, male, 4 years old, 5 years old, white, black, African American.
Can drive around Talladega.
That's what I'm saying. Hispanic, Jewish. You could make it around Talladega or Daytona wide open. But the feeling, I was gonna say, the feeling that you do get. I've heard, you move pretty hard at those speeds in those corners. It's a crazy experience to get your first time. I've heard.
I mean, I guess I've often used the comparison. You go 85 down an old country road or 85 down the interstate. You feel like you're hauling the mail down an old country road. You go 85 down the interstate, you get your phone out and you're looking through your news feed.
I understand, but I was talking about the G-forces.
But I mean, it's all relative. The corner and you get some G-load, but it's nothing like going to Bristol or anything,
What was it in comparison to that first time at East Bay in that super late model? What was that like?
Oh, that was a completely different experience than anything I'd ever known.
For the asphalt people who race and might watch this, what is something that you really just, wow, this is crazy? What was the feeling, sensations, racing, driving style, aggression? What was it that jumped off the table for you in dirt racing?
Every bit of it, no windshields, no radios, no nothing. You're just, and the dirt car, it just seemed like as aggressive as you wanted to drive it, it would take it. The pavement
car, has to be cool. Does the sliding part have to be kind of cool? Does it?
Oh, for sure. I'm a complete dork. I think there's everything
That's
about
what
a
I'm
dirt
saying.
car is
It's
cool.
like drifting. You know, people see it, they think
Oh
drifting.
yeah.
It's cool. We're doing drifting at 150 sometimes. I'm just saying. You know.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think everything about a dirt car is cool, and since I drove that car at East Bay that day, I've never sat back in another pavement car. So that was the turning point. The East Bay practice session was my first time ever in a dirt car, and I had never sat in a pavement car since. And we're looking at 15 years or more now.
So did you start racing some dirt races then?
Yeah, so Schrader owning Peevely, I-55 Speedway there, he's always kind of had I don't know if it's a driving school or more so a play day for like the federated people and stuff. So he's always kind of had a few modifieds and stuff that were around the racetrack that they would go play with for the most part. And
kind of like
there was
a year-end banquet.
Yeah, he would take the people that he thought wanted to go play race car, and they would have some fun days. And so there was a Dirtworks modified. It was an '06 Dirtworks modified. It was a 3-link car at the time that one of the guys that Schrader was letting play spun it out, backed it in the inside wall, and it needed a rear clip on it. So Joey Walsh and I went up to St. Louis and bought the old Dirtworks car back down to Mooresville, and we went to work on it, and that was where my dirt racing started, is just an old Dirtworks car that Schrader would let me go drag back and put together. And Schrader's nephew Joey had a late model stock car engine sitting on the floor that we kind of worked on to make it legal for the IMCA rules. That was what was around here then. And this was around the time Kyle Strickler moved to town and everything, so we were out there battling it out, racing. And
2014, 15, what?
Yeah, he was around here a little bit before that. So.
Well, what year are we talking when this all went down?
So we're in 22. Yeah, 12, 11, 12, somewhere in that range, probably.
Okay.
So after I do some dirt modified racing out of Schrader's, I won 9 in a row between a couple local tracks here, and we went over to Charlotte for the World Short Track Championship they have, and I won it. And
so you just jumped in cars, started whooping ass. You're telling me?
I'm pretty much a badass, Chaz.
Hold on. Who are some names you were beating?
Oh, well, it was IMCA stuff back then.
Who was it? You had to beat somebody good. You just said you won Charlotte.
Yeah, we won the Charlotte, Buck Stevens and a few other guys, but I don't really remember the names.
You had to smoke them, man. I think local guys are really good. So, I mean, you had to do something special. Oh,
for sure. And it was actually kind of funny. The year that we won the Charlotte race, my summer job was Schrader had bought Dick Trickle's ramp truck from 1976, so I had to restore Dick Trickle's ramp truck.
He came in there looking like the rich kid.
Oh, no, not even rich kid. This was
Dick Trickle's truck, bro.
Dick Trickle's ramp truck. This was a 1968 Pepsi cab over ramp truck that we had to go put airlines in the cornfield and stuff.
Well,
this was no rich kid.
No, that sounds like if you put that in Barrett Jackson, it'd be like $2.5 million.
It should be.
That's what
Schrader
I'm saying.
had Schrader had the old Mustang and the hauler that he won all those races with. So that was my summer project. Was to get the ramp truck to where we could go to the racetrack. I got a picture of it somewhere.
Oh my God, you lucky.
So
bastard.
after that, I still have the desire that I want to be a race car driver for a living. I round up a car owner. I actually buy a Rocket from Schrader, and that was where my super late model stuff started. I had a car owner out of Shelby, North Carolina here that he worked on railroad yards, and he bought me a car and an engine, and we went and raced and ran around here, and various other car owners, running around dirt racing. I moved to Tennessee, I moved to Michigan, I moved to Florida, just driving for different people. And
wait, was your winning days through, or?
No, just, had one car owner that went to jail for tax evasion, had one guy that went broke, just, kind of, you race long enough, you get multiple stories of, different people you drive for, and that's kind of where, I don't know that I'm skipping anything, but during all this time, I am building parts for Nick Hoffman.
Okay.
This is how the evolution of where we kind of are today comes in.
Okay.
So Nick and I have been friends for years. I dated Nick's sister when we were kids, actually.
Oh, is that I did a talk show with her. She beat you to it here too, bud. She beat you here. She's the promoter at Millbridge.
That's Ashley. Yep.
Yeah. Carson Illich came up through there.
Yep. So Nick's chassis company kind of took off way faster than he ever anticipated. So I was building parts in my garage, A-frames and bumpers and, T-bars and whatever Nick needed me to... What's that?
You were saving the money, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, Nick was, just a kid going racing, and, he used good resources around him growing up in this town, and, built a damn good piece, and, he was selling parts, and, I was able to, still race myself and, build parts for Nick, and that's kind of how this whole operation that we have today evolved. Nick had his chassis jig in Matt Crafton's shop. So Matt Crafton had bought the building from Billy Hess. So that's where this whole story, kind of evolves into today. So Billy Hess had been a chassis builder in town for 30, 40 years. NASCAR chassis, Shooter Pro Cup, anything pavement oval. Unfortunately, Billy had gotten sick with cancer and shut down Hess Race Cars and sold the buildings, one to Matt Crafton and another one to another guy. So with Nick having his jigs in Crafton's shop at the time, I was coming in and out building parts using the tubing bender and notchers or whatever I needed to do, just because I'm working out of my garage. I got a welder and a grinder and a bandsaw and stuff in my garage, but, not really fab shop. So when I need to, bend bumper bars or whatever, I'm going in and out of the shop over at Crafton's. And Billy Hess is kind of just, for the lack of words, hanging out in the corner. And he hollers at me one afternoon, and he had started building a dirt car before he had gotten sick, and it was kind of just sitting over there with, unfinished, half assembled, some suspension made for it, not really evolved or figured out or anything like that. And he asked me if I was interested in making a couple dollars to put this thing together, and me being the smart racer that I am, I refused any payment just because, hey, you got a race car and I got a helmet, let's go play a race car.
Right.
And that's kind of how this all evolved. The race car was sitting over there, and I need to tell more about Billy Hess.
Yeah,
Billy
I was about
Hess.
to say, who is this Billy Hess? It sounds like it came out of nowhere. What do you mean he has cars? I mean, what you bought him from somebody or what?
Definitely didn't come out of nowhere. The T-Rex picture of Jeff Gordon's car and stuff, that was a Hess race car.
So what, they built they built chassis in
Yep, so
NASCAR, or what?
Yep, Hess Race Cars was a NASCAR chassis manufacturer for the longest time.
Any championships, any wins, or?
Oh, for sure.
Who's some names that raced their cars?
So if you remember, like when Mark Martin was winning all those races in the Winn-Dixie cars, those were all Hess cars. All the way back to like when Harry Gant was running the Skull Bandit cars and everything, those were all Hess cars. A lot of Bobby Allison's chassis were all Hess chassis.
Wow.
Yeah, so, and Ray Everham had kind of kept Billy in a back pocket and had been designing spindles and different front end geometry componentry for Ray in the corner secretively, and that's where the whole T-Rex car came from, that, you know, NASCAR outdated and everything. That was a complete Hess design built race car that, you know, they just kind of, and that's why it was a special, you know, the Winston car, because it was a, you know,
experimental.
It was a complete, yep, for sure. And, you know, they couldn't be doing that type of work inside of Hendricks with everything they were doing. So, you know, Billy's creativity and his knowledge in geometries and front ends and the inner workings and why they do what they do and the reasonings behind all of that stuff, he was very fundamental. Rodney Childers, which is Kevin Harvick's crew chief now, you know, grew up, you know, kind of hanging out at Hess race cars, driving. You know, obviously, if you know anything about Rodney, he's a driver himself. He had always raced Hess chassis and everything. You know, so, and, you know, to kind of complete the circle, my late model stock car crew chief from when I was a kid had worked for Billy for 10 years after his involvement with me and everything.
What did Hess do at COT? When did they stop? When did they get out of NASCAR? They had to get out, right?
Yep. So as the NASCAR kind of evolved to the COT car was around the time of the Hooters Pro Cup Series. The Hooters Pro Cup Series was
yeah. Well,
kind of a spin-off of the Busch Series. You know, it was a modern-day ASA maybe, but they were, for the most part, perimeter, big spring truck arm chassis, which is what a NASCAR car was. And, you know, Billy's design and lightweight thought process and front-end geometries and, you know, all that. Like, if you didn't have a Hess car in the Hooters Pro Cup Series, you know, you were struggling. And Billy kind of ended up being the ringleader for that series, having the parts truck and all of that stuff. And, you know, became a very successful chassis builder in many ways, secretively for bigger names. He never really had the limelight that you see some of these other people have, but he made a darn good business and a living for himself building race cars. And he grew up as a driver. It's a name that I guess
everyone in NASCAR knows.
No, definitely not a name everyone in NASCAR knows.
Even in the shops, even all the car owners, they don't know?
Oh, in town for sure.
That's
yes.
what I mean.
Fans,
like the industry
not so
people, the people who are.
Oh,
anyone
industry
in
people
NASCAR knows who this guy is.
For sure, absolutely. Anybody in town, like as I was driving for Billy, if I needed anything, I could go into any shop and just say, "Hey, I'm driving for Billy," and anything that I needed just was, you know, for the most part, handed over, you know, without question. Oh, if you're with Billy, you know. So, you know, he was a, you know, pioneer in the sport.
He got you racing into the car, I guess.
Oh, for sure. And he saw my abilities. And I guess he built a
dirt car. I guess yeah, sorry, we didn't get to that part. When did he start doing dirt, or did he do dirt at all, or how did he have a car?
So Harold Hawley, which is a crew chief in the sport, he kind of runs Joey Coulter's team. He's an old NASCAR crew chief. Billy and Harold Hawley are brother-in-laws. So as Billy is diagnosed with cancer, they had kind of started the dirt project together, measuring some cars and stuff, and they had kind of started this one chassis. Billy's cancer kind of evolves. He sells the business and the buildings, and now this car's kind of sitting over in the corner, almost grandfathered into the shop. At this point, he's, you know, got 2 or 3, 4 years of diagnosed of cancer, you know, so he's looking for a way to take his mind off of the reality of what's happening. Here I am coming in and out of the shop. I'm not driving for anyone. I had almost kind of gave up at this point. Just, I'd gotten a little bit older and, kind of sick of the challenges and, the lies and, the struggles that you go through as a racer. And, my life had kind of started, had gone through some struggles, personally and financially and everything. And, Billy saw those things.
Where is this where I was, I met you the first time at Cherokee, you were racing. Where did I meet you? Is this the same time this all started going down, or? Because you had, go ahead.
So when I met you, that was the second full season we had raced together.
Okay.
So we built the car, and then we went and ran limited at a local track for one season, just because we were designed. So Billy comes to me and he goes, I want to go racing. I'm sick. I don't want to think about being sick. Let's go play. So I'm the distraction at this point. So he comes and he asks me, do you want to go buy a chassis, or do you want to design and develop one ourselves? And me, being the type of person that I am very much as interested in the workings and fundamentals of what I'm doing as just driving the race car. I like knowing why and how and all those things. And seeing the opportunity of someone like Billy Hess's knowledge and information to support the opportunity to design a race car.
And I'm assuming you've been around building cars too, right? I mean,
yeah. I've been working. Yeah, I've been in and out of race shops my whole life, working. At this point, I probably had to go have a job. It's probably been 6 or 8 years I've been, full-time employed, working fab shops, race shops, different things like that. So, my skill set has improved, to the point to where I can build a complete race car by myself. And that's where the relationship really evolved with Billy and I. We could sit there and come up with a crazy idea, and I could get the saw and the welder and go build it and make it. And he was impressed with my ability and my quality of my work after we were done. And that's just kind of how it grew.
Was there anything that he would help on the chassis or a part development piece on this car that he was like,
absolutely,
we've been doing this for this many years and it's a secret, kind of been this, do that?
Absolutely. There's things about the front end that I had no clue would work on forward drive that, once he explained it to me, you get the light bulb, like you just kind of, the simplest answers to some of the most complicated questions, just because he was around during the, we're going to move this steering arm here for no more other reasons than the deflection, he answers questions with simple reasons sometimes. And, it really helped put all of the pieces of the puzzle of all the knowledge from racing for my entire life all together, and this is, we're talking about dealing with a guy that's knowing he's closing in on the end of his life. He didn't have any sons. He has a daughter, but, he didn't really have anyone to share his knowledge with. So, I was the biggest sponge I could possibly be for the time frames that I had the opportunity to learn every bit that I could from him. So we raced up and down the East Coast all the way from New York to Florida with this car, and we cut and we changed and we went to different dirts and we went all over the place just trying to figure out, as a racer would develop something new. And the dirt late model world is, as much as I hate to say it, it's all a giant copy of a Longhorn right now. Everybody that's building a race car, if you take the sheet metal off of them, 98% of them all look identically to the same. Even Bobby Pierce went and bought a Longhorn now. We're in a world where everybody's racing the same thing and they're all going the exact same speed. So, taking the knowledge and backgrounds that we have, we decided it was time to develop, a different car, and that's what we did. At this time, I'd already been working with Justin Shaw, which is my shop guy, and is also CJ Rayburn's grandson. So we have kind of put together, a team of knowledge and from years and generations of racing, and developing this new car that we've created.
And what happened to Billy at this? What it was like?
So this summer, July 8th, unfortunately, we lost Billy to cancer. And that's when the legacy chassis kind of came about. I was sitting here with a brand new designed race car that he and I had been working on for the last 4 years. He was very adamant about me jigging and fixturing everything that I had, and with his building chassis for years, there was, fixtures and spindle fixtures and, some tooling and stuff that, made the process easier to become a chassis manufacturer. And, that's where the legacy chassis came from. The name Legacy, obviously I'm trying to do my best to continue Billy Hess's legacy. My family's legacy.
He owned the cars. How did they become yours?
Well, I guess I'm just a very blessed young man. He saw enough in what I was trying to accomplish.
Was you just grandfathered into the free late models there? Nobody saw you take them? You just took them out the back door? What happened?
No, far from that.
I don't know.
No, grateful that Billy's wife has been, gracious enough to, allow me to work myself into building my own company.
And so he gave you the cars, or what?
I wouldn't call it gave. I have the race cars and stuff that we built, and I'm in a position to continue what he had started with his life, and was unfortunately cut short in what he wanted to continue. I have Billy's, equipment to build race cars, and that's what we're doing. We're using Billy's equipment to continue, his thought and his vision, and that's where the name Legacy comes from and everything. So, with the struggles and everything that my life has gone through, and to be sitting here in this position with very fortunate opportunities. I hate to say that a passing of a legend is an opportunity, but the circle of life has shown me that there's still good in this world, and anyone that's known me for a long time would definitely say that I'm humbled and grateful for everything that has happened, especially with the partnership with Justin and the welcoming of the Rayburn family. I can't be any more grateful for the welcoming that the sisters have given me. The family has welcomed me into the shops and the buildings, open arms. With Justin acquiring CJ's properties, with CJ passing this year also, the timing of everything has worked out almost overwhelmingly in favor for all of this to happen. We have a giant road ahead. We have a lot of chassis companies to compete against, and a lot of smart racers out there that are doing darn good jobs building race cars. We're not saying that ours is better than anybody's by any means, but
well, hold on. You said everybody's copying Longhorn now.
Yeah, but I'm not one to sit here and bash any other brand. They're all working hard to be racers and go racing, and that's all I'm trying to do.
What makes your chassis different than everyone else's, though? Isn't there some differences? I guess you're saying yours is not a Longhorn copy at all. It's completely different.
No, I have.
That's how it sounds. You're saying what you got there is something that's very special.
Yes, I feel like if there's ever been a hybrid between a pavement car and a dirt car, that's kind of what we've built. Today's super dirt late models steer more than they ever have with the front end, and that's what we really worked on as we were developing this car, was to get it to steer with the front end, ground clearance in the front, so we get plenty of travel. And we worked on every corner before we stopped and rejigged and started producing the product that we have today.
Okay, so then what else is some things that you got on there that's a little bit different that you can describe and not give away too much? I'm assuming you're saying if you took the sheet metal off, it looks completely different than what people are used to.
It does, for sure. With some of my different forms of motorsports background, I have a very aerodynamically minded thought process. So I worked on the bottom side, on the floors, on the safety aspects. I made the bottom side of my car way stronger. If you flip some of these cars over, there's really not a whole lot of protection underneath the driver. So I made a different cockpit area. My door bar design is different. My frame rails are designed different. My rear clip's different. I did a lot of things different just for the fact of being different, because everybody's in such a small box. If everybody's racing the same car, then everybody's going the same speed.
Well, so I know you did that PRI show at Indy at their shop down there at Rayburn's, correct?
Yes.
And the one picture I saw that was intriguing to somebody who would know exactly what's going on, or is like, wow, what's that? Or maybe, hey, I tried that, it didn't work. It's Scott Bloomquist. That picture spoke a little words. Did you get to talk to Scott? Did he bring up anything to you? I'm interested on how that interaction went. If all this stuff you're talking about's under the frame of that car.
Yeah, that was definitely, an experience that makes all this, worth what you're doing. But no, I had already left to come back home to North Carolina, and Scott showed up an hour after I had left, just almost to take in the scenery of CJ's shop. Especially because there was a little bit of time where they weren't sure if that property was even going to remain. There's lots of building around it, and the locals and the racers and the people that support the sport are very grateful that Justin's been able to save the building and the pictures and all that stuff. So Scott comes in just to kind of like have a little, memorial toast for CJ there, and Justin says he walks around and he's like, well, what's this thing? And after, looking here and looking there and looking underneath of it and looking over and looking down, and, there was definitely some serious interest and questioning, and,
I wish you knew some of the questions. Dang.
What's that?
I said I wish you knew some of the questions. I wish you was there to hear it all, recall it all.
Oh, you and me both. I mean, there was an opportunity, but to know that he was interested, and
was there anything in particular that he questioned about, or?
Oh, he was very interested in my spindle design. He was interested in my lower design. My front end is it's a rear strut style front car, where most of the cars are front struts. So he was very interested in how I had all that hooked up, and the underside and under tray of the car and everything, how it's all connected and flowed together, and we use all of Earnhardt Technology Group's parts. So he was admiring some of the parts and componentry that we have used in our build, and yeah, it's, a flattering experience to have a guy like that even walk up and look at it. Never mind take the time to really investigate what you had worked on and designed.
Well, y'all do have a new super late model chassis sitting there. It's on the showroom floor. What was the price tag on that piece? Or
So
these pieces?
So they're all going to be built to the same stage, all wired, plumbed, fuel cells, bodies, everything. 100% all the components come from Earnhardt Technologies. We're selling them all for $45,000. And we're not going to sell any rollers or anything like that. They're all going to be built to the same specs. I build the cars 100% by myself. So I'm only going to be able to build 7 or 8 a year. So that's going to help keep, the market value of your car high as you go to resell it if you want a new one, because there's not going to be but
until you got to get employees,
Well, no, there's benefits to keeping the numbers small.
Exclusivity.
Exclusive, and I'm very OCD with the quality of my product, and I want my customers to all receive the highest quality parts and components they can. And I know that if I'm building them all myself, that it's to my specs. And I try to hold myself to the highest level of accountability that there can be. So it's hard to find people that do the type of work to the level that I expect. And obviously, as this continues to evolve, I'll have to outsource some bumpers and stuff like that are, a little less, crucial as far as, precision. But all of the major componentry and everything I plan on keeping to, in-house for, quality control measures.
Well, and how did the reveal go? How many cars did y'all have to sell? Or?
Well, right now we have orders. We're taking, there's 3 in existence. There's the 4th one is just coming off the jig today. Just finished up the last little bit of it this afternoon. I have a 6-week build time per car. So the next couple are ready, for their customers, and we're taking orders as we speak, and we have our own full shock package with Justin doing the shocks, and so
does that come with the 45, Preston?
I wish it did. No, with inflation and everything's gone so high, the price of all this stuff's gotten out of control. And that's me doing this with no overhead. I live in my shop, so my bills are as cheap as they can possibly be. I pay my own insurance. I don't have to pay anybody else's. I don't have to pay employees or, labor boards or any crazy stuff like that, workman's comps, none of that. So my overhead is as low as it can possibly be. And, unfortunately, price of race cars is just getting expensive, especially for a highest quality of a car that I've built.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, Scott better have some questions. 45,000 is a lot of money. You better have something special.
Well, it's not outrageous when the rest of them are at the same price range, and we've got higher quality parts straight out the door than any of the other manufacturers are selling their cars with.
What do you mean? What is some upgrade parts that come stock on yours or whatever that don't come on the others?
Well, like I said, every part on our car comes from Earnhardt Technologies, which is definitely the nicest parts and components in the industry. And that's front end to the back. So I've used a lot more machined parts, a lot more, lightweight, strong trick parts. The entire car is made out of 4130 chromoly tubing, which is almost $10 a foot. So when you start dealing with, 140, 150 foot length of tubing at $10 a foot, and the price starts adding up fast.
Right. Anything else that's trick on it? Anything else different? Dashboard light up or something?
I'm a minimalist, so there's not even a dashboard in it. It's just got a switch panel and a gauge panel. And,
okay. I didn't know if you had some carbon fiber in there or what.
Oh yeah, we got a carbon fiber floorboard in it.
Whoa! So you do have something pretty, huh?
Oh yeah, we definitely put all the bling and everything we could on it. I've used the comparison of bicycles to many, and I've also used Lance Armstrong as my example. So Lance Armstrong can go to Walmart and he can buy a Schwinn or a Huffy or whatever you want to buy at Walmart, and that son of a gun can ride it as fast as any carbon fiber bicycle that you could go to any trick bike shop and buy, right? But there's also the guy that wants to buy that trick carbon fiber bicycle with all the fancy bells and whistles and trick parts and fancy components.
And then the guy who wants to sell those trick fancy bicycles puts Lance Strong on it for free, and then when he goes fast on it, that means people want to go fast like Lance Armstrong on that carbon fiber bicycle that guy put him on.
Well, that's
is that not? I mean, honestly, everybody wants a Longhorn because of Jonathan Davenport, guys.
Right. Oh, for sure.
Nobody wants it. No, I mean, look, you could put him in any car. If you put Jonathan Davenport in your car next year, he's going to go right out the block, start winning, eventually, very quickly.
And
everybody's going to want to buy your car.
That's what I mean. I'm not going to sit here and say my race car is hands down the fastest race car that's ever been created, and it's going to go win every race that you ever without working on it. That's ignorant to think. I'm a racer, and I think that I can make any race car go fast, especially if you put in enough time and effort. But I tried to make a race car that was, a little bit more advanced, had more ground clearance. I'm a little more aerodynamic. I've worked on my body design. I've worked on my undercarriage. I've worked on my suspension design. I've worked on, just minor components all the way around the car to try to create something a little bit better.
Well, and I mean, honestly, when you say all this about, all the cars being the same, I think about a CJ Rayburn interview. I believe it was with Rigsby. And he was
They're all CJ Rayburn copies.
Well, no, that is, yeah, for sure. But then also he was trying to say how, the cars really ain't that much faster. And you would think, with all the technology that's been put in them, that over the years they would be significantly faster. But do you think people just kept copying and never developed? Oh,
for sure. If you take the time and you get on the internet and you look at, you can pull up 5 or 6 of these chassis builders today, and 90% of all their bars are in the same spot. Their roll cage design is the exact same. The bars underneath the seat and floor and everything are all the same. The front clips are all the same.
Do they have to be?
There's a few. No, there's very minimal rules, as far as the design.
So when you're telling me, when I see all these hundreds of modifieds and late models and everything, the cage designs and all that, they can all be different if they want it to be.
Oh, for sure. If you wanna change the way your roll cage goes up and over, you can change it with 2 bars, 4 bars. As long as you have a roll cage and 4 door bars and this and that. 1 3/4 tube in here. There's dimensions and rules and sizes and stuff. But
so the only reason we see all these different cars looking extremely the same is they're copying and then I guess component parts.
Yeah, I mean, as far as the components, they're almost all front strut style lower control arm cars. The chassis and the main structures are almost all the same as far as the way they're designed and integrated together. And And that's kind of why we just took a step back and reevaluated where this bar met and where that bar met and the way this designed. And it's not a rocket ship. It's all we're doing is going in circles here. We're just trying to create something a little bit cleaner, a little bit nicer, a little bit stronger, a little bit lighter.
Like how you weight or design your cage or these pieces, you're building weight in the car, like, so that would change how it would handle. So if everybody's based on the same cages, then they're all kind of in the same weight ranges too.
Oh, for sure. And
so you can't really develop anything if every piece matters. So I mean, your car, if you hit it right, if you're so different and you hit something different that is right, could be faster than everybody else's and take that. That's what I meant by faster over the years instead of copying, developing.
Oh, right. And that's why I went down a different road. Just, if everybody's in the same box, you're all going the same speed. So if I step outside the box, and right now I'm getting some of the questions, why'd you do it like this? Why'd you do that? Most creators always get questions out before they have, results. And, but like I said, if I just built the same car as everybody else, what's the point in building another car?
Right.
So that's what we did.
Well, I mean, and hopefully it's going to work out. You gotta. I would hope for you that. I know I saw Justin Shaw's going to race the car in the crate series, but go ahead.
So we've got a couple customers going. We're going to take it to Volusia and do a test with Penske shocks on the 23rd and 24th. No, with the crate car, and then he's going to go from there to East Bay and run down there a night or two. And a couple of his customers through Superheat Solutions, we're going to put them in the car and let them make a couple laps. And we've got a lot of desire, a couple deposits sitting there ready to go, and the future's looking bright. We just got to keep at it and keep staying steady and keep building quality race cars and keep testing and developing. And we're a whole lot further along than we were when we started this. So.
Well, I was just thinking, I would hope for you. That's what I was trying to say at the beginning, but I knew that Justin was going to run some. I wanted to make sure you said that, but I would hope y'all could find a way to get a house car and throw a hitter in the damn thing. You need somebody to win in it before somebody's going to buy it. They got to do something.
Oh, for sure.
Special.
For sure. But
I'm not saying Justin Shaw can't do something special, but it's still crate racing. Nobody pays attention to it. No one cares. The greatest crate racer in the world, I don't know his name. Most people don't. I know disrespect is just probably true. You got to, if you want to sell cars next to Longhorn and Rocket and next to these hitters, you got to be one of the hitters, on the national scene.
Well, Rome wasn't built in a day, and unless you got enough financial support to come and do it, this is how we got to make it happen. You got to do what you got to do, and selling a crate car 2 or 3 times before we got enough money rounded up to where we can put a ringer in one and stuff. Those are just the routes we're gonna have to take as this whole project evolves. And
so Scott Bloomquist called you and said, I'm going to show up with the Super and put it in, take the car and go run it. You would say no.
I have my car sitting here, and there's Justin's car.
I'm just saying. If a guy has a motor, and he's a hitter, throw it in the car. Let's see what he's got.
There's definitely options to be explored, as they become, options that we can explore and, discuss, we'll deal with those as we cross that bridge. But right now, this is kind of where we're at, and this is what we can afford to do. And this is the support we have with the people that support what we're doing. And,
let me know. I know some drivers off the top of my head that probably have a motor laying around. They just don't have a car.
Oh, I know lots of them that have already offered to come up with a motor and stuff. But when they crash it and can't fix it and all that stuff, that's when a guy that's just starting out as a business owner can't afford to do that stuff.
Well, that's when you do the whole, I've heard this is happening in wing sprint car racing, but nobody talks about it. They come, they bring a motor to a team, and then they throw in deposits and they rent the ride, but they brought a motor, but they don't pay full price to rent it because they brought a motor, and it's.
See, and that's going down the road that we're so adamantly against with the whole NASCAR thing. It's kind of a double-edged sword.
It's a survival, like you said. Those guys are doing it to survive in the industry. I
know. I
think
get
for
it.
legacy, if you want to sell a car to a national team that's going to run national, and they're looking at Longhorn and your car side by side in the paper for a similar price, you know where they're going to go if they want to keep up with Davenport. They don't want to experiment. I'm just saying, if you could find a way to get a hitter in your car and put it on a national scene and perform well, sell cars for the rest of your life almost. You can't stop that form or that value of the advertisement of having a winning race car driver. Longhorn is literally selling chassis right now because of Jonathan Davenport, not the other way around.
So I've known Longhorn since its inception. Don't forget that me and Justin Labonte grew up together. It wasn't the only chassis to buy when Justin started. Justin didn't go out giving away cars and doing all that to make it what it is. He worked his ass off up and down the road with, people and got good guys in his race cars as it evolved, and it is what it is today.
Well,
it didn't just create.
But in a way, Kevin Rumley is what took it next level.
That's what people like to say.
Well, it was the Rumley 6 car with Davenport that really put Longhorn on the scene there.
He was selling race cars way before that.
I understand he was selling race cars. I'm just talking about when Longhorn started really kicking some ass.
That's one person that got a hold of it that, did a good job.
So did Kevin Rumley make Longhorn?
No. Longhorn is a development of... The Longhorn front end is a development of Bob Labonte.
Okay.
I hate to say Kevin Rumley didn't design that whole front end, but Kevin Rumley didn't design that whole front end. The front end that's on that race car is, an evolution of what Bob Labonte, which is Terry and Bobby and all of them, thought there. The same school that, Billy Hess grew up out of racing. It's all we're doing is going in a circle. You can only mount things so many places. You can only design so many different A-frames. You can only design so many different spindles.
Well, I'm not saying that Kevin Rumley built, Longhorn chassis. I'm just saying they started going places in the super late model scene when he started getting going with that 6 car and Davenport. That's when it really started. Oh wow, this ain't just Bobby Labonte's old or Labonte's old team, a car that they came out with, and Earl Pearson was okay, but I'm just saying, it seemed like that's when it really started taking off.
Oh, for sure. And there's an evolution of all that to get to that point, and we're just at the beginning of our road.
Got to get a hitter in the car.
Hey, got to get the business built, got to get cars built, got to get people to know who we are, got to do all of it. It's all an evolution. We're making conversations where there's way more people that know about legacy chassis today than there was 6 months ago, and there's way further talks of a big hitter being in our cars than there ever was. So,
nice.
With hard work and determination and a never giving up attitude, I feel fully confident that, what we're trying to accomplish here will be accomplished.
Do you, well, you watch the racing scene. Who would be a guy you'd like to see in that car?
I want Kyle Strickler in it.
You want Kyle Strickler in the legacy chassis?
Yeah, I think Kyle struggled here the last couple of years. He's got good backers. He knows how to race, knows how to keep suspenders on. I think Kyle would be a good salesman. I think Kyle is outside the box enough to try something different. And, yeah, if I had to pick somebody, it'd be Kyle Strickler.
Well, and you're saying it's a little bit of that asphalt late model kind of feeling to it. I guess it's a halfway split. He does so well in modifieds. It don't matter what kind. And you see the pavement guys, they seem to do okay in modifieds, but late models, they kind of struggle. So I wonder if there's a similarity to maybe probably throttle work on the late model or the modified and the asphalt cars.
Yeah, for sure. You got to be a lot easier with the modified and keep them straighter and all that, just because you got a lot less tire. So
yeah. In the late model, you charge the corner kind of. In modified, you can kind of float it in there.
Yeah, late model is as much commitment as skill.
What do you mean by that?
Just ball it up, hold it on. Like just holding it. Being brave enough to go out there and do it sometimes is as big as being able to go out and do it.
Oh, really? Is it slick tracks? Not even hard out there. I mean,
slick track's a little bit different, but when you get these hammer down wide open qualifying days, it's as much just committing to doing it as it is the skill to doing it.
I wonder if that changes from tracks to track, or if it's just certain.
Oh, for sure. You go to a little bull ring that's small and slick. It's a completely different deal. But
right,
you get them places where.
Go ahead.
You get them places where you got a big curb and you're just tossing it in there and throttling it up. It's the guy with the biggest kahunas that's going to sit it on the pole,
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess we'll let you get the hell out of here. We're just at the 2-hour mark of recording.
Oh my goodness. I've talked to you for 2 hours already.
Oh, okay.
Just kidding.
Yeah, I'm all right. But, no, I mean, I'm just saying it's 2 hours. So, I don't want to keep you all night long. You're in Eastern time right now. Are you back where are you out of now? Mooresville? Where?
I am in North Wilkesboro, North Carolina now. Mooresville has just gotten so overpopulated. I had to move up the mountain a little bit. So I'm like 5 miles from the old North Wilkesboro Speedway.
Okay. Nice. And they're racing there again. So you going to run there when they go racing or?
I'm not invited to the All-Star race, so no.
No, you're not invited to the All-Star.
No, like I said, since I've been dirt racing, I haven't had any desire to go back pavement. It's I'll go help buddy, watch buddy and stuff. It's just kind of, it doesn't spark my interest like the dirt stuff does.
Really?
So.
Uh-huh.
Yes, sir.
That's weird. North Wilkesboro is such a big deal. It seems like to everyone there, and you're 5 minutes from it. You don't even care.
Well, I don't say I don't care. I'm grateful that, the sports, the town's getting the sport back, and, the community has the racetrack to celebrate, the history and the stuff that they have with the Speedway. And, my family's had a lot of success over there. I've got lots of memories as a kid growing up there, and one of my best friends that's gotten hurt. That was the last race he ever drove before he got injured. There's lots of memories over there that I hold dear to my heart. But since I've become a dirt racer, I've evolved into being a dirt racer.
Okay. And now building chassis every day for the rest of your life.
That's my goal, is to be able to build race cars to afford to go racing myself. So, that's, building race cars and going racing is all I've ever known and all I've ever done. And, if I can make a living doing it and support myself and continue to do what I love, then, I consider that a success.
Well, I guess we left one big time name out there driving your car, and that would have been you, huh?
Well, I'm probably the most modest person that you ever meet. I know I'm as quality of a driver as anybody that you'll meet, but I know my place and my time, and I'm not going to make a living, up and down the road making as a World Outlaws driver or anything. I'm already 41, and this seems like a good way to build a future for myself and to help others, and pass my knowledge of racing on to others. And I see as much joy into helping other race car drivers evolve and learn more through the experiences that I've had. So I'm grateful for the place I'm at today.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll stop taking all of your time. That's probably the best thing to do at this point. But
all right, Chaz, I appreciate everything that you've done. I appreciate your friendship, and I'm glad we got to have this conversation.
Well, I hope it doesn't get you in trouble. You said a lot of mean things about a bunch of people.
Oh yeah, I'm just so
Kevin
hateful.
Rumley is sending you a cease and desist tomorrow.
And he'll be all right.
Okay. Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. As long as DEI and Earnhardt Technologies run the sport.
Well, I don't know if they run the sport, but I know Steve Maynard over at Earnhardt Technologies builds the nicest parts and components that you can put on your race car. So
Yeah.
Those are the ones that we went on.
Steve Maynard is a good guy,
Yeah. Steve's a darn good guy. I've known Steve for many, many years. He's been a faithful DEI employee for 25 years or more.
Well, and from my understanding, or a lot of people don't understand how Earnhardt Technologies is a descendant part builder, of DEI, all of it. So.
Oh yeah. It's basically Steve had the option to figure out what to do with all these tools and equipment sitting over here going to waste, and Steve, being a former dirt racer before he moved to town going NASCAR racing, had the vision of creating what he's done. And Earnhardt Technologies is 100% the vision of Steve and his love for dirt racing.
Well, and it's probably making a good penny now, finally, I'm assuming.
It's hopefully it's at least keeping up with the payments on all the equipment, because there's lots of tools over there.
I bet there is. That's a pretty good electric bill, huh?
Yeah, that's a lot more overhead than we're dealing with.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we can see that car up front, and hopefully, I mean, even though it is crate racing, you can if you do something in that crate racing, it will turn some heads. So at least you get to see it on the track soon.
Yeah, there's it needs to be out racing, and this is the start for us to get it out racing, other than my car. So the more people that sees it, the more interest we'll get, and the snowball hopefully will continue to grow, and that's all we can ask for. All
right. Well, thanks for calling, man. I really am glad we did this one.
I appreciate it, Chaz, and I appreciate everything that you do for the sport, and keep doing what you're doing. We love hearing your opinions and bringing the truth to the light.
Well, the main thing I like about you is you are not afraid to walk into a college campus sandwich shop and order pizza at 3 a.m. in St. Louis at the Dome. I mean, what the hell was that, man? Oh, my God. I couldn't believe it.
Hey, we did it. We had fun, and we got memories to share and stories to tell. That's all life's about, in my opinion.
All I know is that you told me something. I went across the river on the way home in Illinois, and we are full of green power today. You know what I'm saying? I drank my kiwi shake earlier.
Hey,
green power, kiwi shake, and lime juice.
Absolutely. It's good for you. God put it on the earth for me and you.
I know. That's
Have
what
a good night.
This lime's all about. I literally have a bottle of lime juice right here. Not lying. Well, where can people actually go contact or learn about this car? That's what everybody wants to know.
So we're building a website as we speak. It's not up and running yet, but we have a Facebook page, Legacy Chassis, and all of the cars will be sold through the Rayburn compound, which is the Superheat Solutions, which is Justin Shaw's company. So Justin has Superheat Solutions on Facebook as well, and between him, myself, Legacy Chassis, or Superheats, you should be able to find us.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess thanks for
All right,
calling
man.
in.
All right, Chaz. Thank you very much, bud.
All right, we'll talk to you.
See you, buddy.
Bye. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you had it. Our live little chat with Justin or Josh Richeson. Justin. Sorry, that's that guy's name. There's a letter on the door over here. It says Justin. It's some Christmas gift thing. But anyway, look at this beautiful camera. I still can't get over it. Look at the old camera. How did y'all watch me? Y'all actually, I have people, 250,000 people a month look at this. Oh my God, look. This is what I actually look like. This is what I actually look, golly, look at the skin, bro. It looks normal. What is this? And look at the, man, this is what y'all was used to. I'm so sorry. I want to thank my babes for getting this for me for Christmas. It is a very nice camera. I may do I'm gonna do a review on the camera, but just keep in mind, I don't look like this. I look like this. And people say I'm two-faced, but let me show you something. Hey, show you something, boy. I'm sorry that y'all had to look at me. Oh my God. I look like I'm 60 years old in this. Now, there's the young, vibrant, hat wearing, big old arm muscle guy. Look at these shoulders, boy. Look at the shoulders. Look at that. I like this other angle as well. I wonder if the chat even went up from that one. Love it, Chaz. Okay, message retracted. But anyway, I see it says the way it sounds. I have the same mic, but the camera is definitely different. See, so the other camera is that camera. I mean, it's not a bad look angle or whatever you want to call it, but I do like how clear and how smooth this one is. Look at this. I mean, it's like 2-second delay on the voice. At least this is in sync. It looks nice. I got this ear. The gold looks nice. And the background doesn't look, it looks normal. It looks like how it looks. This is not how it looks. This is how it looks down the vision of a commode. Does anybody know what a commode is? If you don't know what a commode is, you might be Generation Z. I think that's the most recent one. All right. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. Josh Richeson with Legacy Chassis. A lot of interesting things that we just talk about. How about, maybe I'll just stare straight at you. A lot of interesting things that we just got through talking about. And interesting. Interesting to say the least. I think there's a lot of clips that are going to be coming out here soon, very soon, with this whole situation. The stories there were amazing, I thought. And we'll see what else could be said down the road over, apparently Rumley, Longhorn. I don't know about all that. But anyway, it seems like this car's fast. We're going to find out. Got to put a hitter in the car. That's what I think. Got to put a hitter in the car to see what the hitter's got. I am a firm believer that Jonathan Davenport is selling Longhorn chassis, and Longhorn chassis are not. I think that he's selling Longhorn chassis more than Jonathan Davenport's performance is based on being in a Longhorn chassis. They're not making him. I think he could do what he's doing in a Rocket. I think he could do what he's doing in a Capital. He could do what he's doing in a lot of these different chassis out here. So you got to put a hitter in the car, and you got to go and see what the hitter can do. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in. We will catch you next time. This was the greatest podcast on dirt, and you have been watching on Long Live the Chaz. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.